There are confessions that don't arrive as apologies, but as psalms. His did, quietly, almost like a benediction whispered to no one and to everyone at once. At 57, alone in a Nashville room washed in soft amber, he finally spoke of love, not the billboard kind, but the kind that breaks you open, then teaches your hands how to rebuild without pretending forever is the point. For years he had been the bright smile of a genre, blue eyes under stage lights, leather at his heels, a voice that could make hurt sound like a promise. To the world, he was the dreamer who crossed oceans and won the gaze of a porcelain queen, two constellations finding each other across hemispheres, touched by fame, hungry for peace. But fame is a museum that steals the air from sacred things. It places a heart behind glass and asks it to breathe. Nearly 20 years of marriage looked miraculous from a distance. Carpets the color of sunsets, award nights threaded arm in arm. Yet beneath the glow lived a tremor you couldn't photograph. Every note on stage carried the price of distance. Every ovation ricocheted off a ribcage that missed home. In the middle of sold-out rooms, he sometimes felt locked inside a cage made of sound. Fame isn't freedom, he told a friend once. It's loneliness with better speakers. So when he told the truth about his marriage, scandal didn't spill out. Grace did. I loved her more than I knew how, he said. And sometimes love changes shape. It doesn't die, it just stops needing proof. The world had queued for fireworks, betrayals, spectacle. What arrived instead was a man explaining how love survives in the shadow of perfection. What followed, his rise, his demons, his tenderness, his breaking, was never just about two people. It was the schooling of a soul that chose to stay open after fame had shattered. The first draft of him, it was about a small-town kid who wanted a guitar and found out every chord of success. Rings with a note of sacrifice. 57, he isn't chasing applause anymore. He's chasing honesty. He isn't singing to be adored. He's singing to be understood. And if you listen, in that hush of the Nashville room, you can hear the shift. A man who stopped performing for the crowd and started speaking to time itself. This isn't a fall from grace. It's the end of pretending, and this is where the melody begins. Before any spotlight found him, before the interstates, before his name learned to echo, there was a boy on rough carpet in a modest Australian house, charting the frets with shy, trembling fingers. The air carried dust and eucalyptus. Outside, cicadas kept impossible time. Inside, a son of Robert and Marianne discovered that music was both a door and a mirror. He was born in New Zealand in late October of 1967, but it was Caboolture that raised him. Work boots, early mornings, a town that taught patience. His father sold instruments when he could. His mother kept the house humming with American country. Glenn Campbell and Merle drifted through the walls like sermons for anyone restless enough to listen. He didn't just hear songs, he saw them. The ache, the grit, the working-class holiness of ordinary lives made luminous if you played them right. At 4, he held a ukulele. At 6, he shouldered a guitar. If you want the world to listen, his father told him, make it feel you. So he practiced until his fingertips burned, then practiced more. When he couldn't afford strings, he learned to make broken ones sing. Evenings turned the living room into a stage. Neighbors paused at thin walls to hear. He wasn't dreaming of fame yet. He was dreaming of belonging, of a world that matched the music in him. School made less sense. He was quiet, a little odd, teased for loving American cowboy songs while other boys chased the scrum. Teachers called him distracted. Classmates called him strange. The strings never did. Music, he'd say later, was the only language I didn't stumble through. By 9, he was singing covers at talent shows, with a voice too soft for his size and too honest to ignore. Even when he won, he went home to replay the flaws, hunting the missed notes in the dark. Perfectionism bloomed early, blessing and burden both. At 12, his father mortgaged the house and bought him a guitar meant for the life he aimed to live. "Make it count," the old man said. The boy did. He spent hours absorbing Chet Atkins, copying the lines until his hands cramped. While friends discovered crushes, He chased tone. The instrument became a shelter from what he couldn't name. By 15, he was on sticky bar floors, too young to drink, too old to be naive, offering songs to strangers clapping more from habit than from awe. Yet he played like the universe had taken a seat. "You learn who you are on nights like those," he'd say. "You learn if it's for love or for applause." When the final school bell let everyone else scatter towards safe paychecks, he packed a suitcase, a guitar, and a map covered in maybe. He kissed his mother, hugged his father, whispered, "I'll make it worth it," and left town with nothing but faith, the kind you only get before the world explains its rules. He didn't know it then, but music would keep saving him, first from smallness, then from loneliness, then from himself. Nashville. The word felt like prophecy, but prophecy up close is grit. He arrived in 1992, 24, unknown, broke, surrounded by 1,000 versions of the same dream. He slept in cheap rooms with walls that hummed like amps, cut demos for singers who forgot his name, pawned gear to pay rent, and kept the music burning inside like oxygen you can't buy. Hunger, not ambition, kept him alive. He built a band, The Ranch, and paid in beer or in claps. Crowds were thin, nights bled into dawn, songs were born in motel shadows, ceilings leaked, whiskey stopped being an accessory and started acting like a friend. Then, almost 10 years in, the dam cracked. His American debut landed like a quiet thunder. Not twang, not polish. Something raw and electric. Anthems for the honest and the tired. Awards arrived. Expectations doubled. The machine that once ignored him now demanded perfection. When inspiration thinned, the bottle didn't. And then came the night a different light entered the room. Los Angeles, 2005. A charity gala full of gleam. She passed, a study in power softened by sorrow. And when he introduced himself, her smile melted what armor he had left. She didn't see the fame, he'd say later. She saw the man under it. They recognized each other's loneliness. The songs gentled. A future dared to look possible. But the past keeps long hours. The ghost of addiction trailed their joy. Even as he fell in love, parts of him were falling apart. She gave him courage. To stop surviving and start living. In 2006, in Sydney's Candleglow, vows sounded like prayers answered. Two souls stepping into a home they'd been building from across the world. Life turned in a major key for a while. A masterpiece of an album stitched confession to triumph. The stage became congregation. The world saw charisma and light. The world did not see the whispered backstage prayers, the tremor at his fingertips, the cost of staying steady. She chased, roles that demanded bravery and gave back grace. Sundays found them barefoot on the porch, daughters dancing in the grass. Stardom softened into family. But love beneath a microscope is a double-edged mirror. He toured. She filmed. Oceans grew where conversations used to live. They phoned, they wrote, they missed each other into voicemails that ended in quiet. "Love isn't grand gestures," he said once. "It's showing up, especially when you're tired." 4 months after the wedding, the headlines hit. Rehab. Not defeat. Petition. The pressure, the fear, the tilt was too much. She didn't retreat. She came closer. "Because love doesn't run," she'd say later. He came out sober, humbler, not undone. "She saved my life," he said, voice catching. Not by fixing, but by believing. The next records bore the fingerprints of rescue. Love letters pressed into vinyl. They held the line for years. Red carpets, soft looks, private storms that never gossiped. He wanted to be the man she believed in. And mostly, he was. But even strong flames flicker in the wind. What faded wasn't feeling. It was choreography. Tender when together, careful when apart, formal in their kindness, polite in their texts. Friends noticed before cameras did. Speculation swelled. The truth remained quieter than headlines. Two good hearts stretched thin by distance, still respectful of the vows they'd spoken, still unwilling to stain each other's names. "Marriage isn't a promise that time won't change you," he said. "It's the hope you'll change together. Hope doesn't always keep tempo." He turned back to stripped-down sessions, songs of stillness that traded gloss for ache. She went deeper into characters who felt like questions with skin. Love did not end with thunder. It exhaled. What began as a wildfire settled into an ember, warm, present, further away. By the time the silence became visible, the answer was already in his voice. Love changes. You can force yesterday into tomorrow, or you can let it become what it's asking to be. No regret, no relief, just peace. Fewer joint photos, fewer shared interviews. A reporter asked her once, and she smiled through a shimmer, "He will always be my family." A sentence that closed a chapter and blessed it at the same time. Family became holy for him. He sang it, wrote it, arranged his days around it. This wasn't collapse, it was transformation. The art of letting go without throwing anything away. No villains, no broken glass. Just the end of a road they'd walked as far as they could, grateful for the miles. When the noise wandered off in search of fresher scandal, he stayed. Quieter, steadier, different. He began to want silence. Not emptiness, but the space between notes. For the first time since childhood, he could breathe without applause. When asked about her, he said, "We walked through a lot of fire. Walking out of it doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means you finally learned what the flames were teaching." He stopped aiming for perfect, husband, artist, redeemed man, and started aiming for human. He spoke of a new sobriety, not from drink, but from control. "You think success fixes things," he said. "It amplifies them. The fears get louder. Love," he learned, "was never designed to complete you. It was meant to reveal you." "I used to think love was holding on," he told a crowd, voice thinning. "Now I think it's knowing when to let go and still wish them peace." The room didn't cheer. It listened. He poured it into songs that chose vulnerability over varnish. One, a whisper of forgiveness, never named names and didn't need to. Listeners felt the truth by the temperature of the room. They co-parented with grace. They smiled at the same milestones. He spoke of gratitude when her name arrived, not as punctuation, but as prayer. "She believed in me when I couldn't," he said. Love doesn't disappear. It changes color. He called it emotional sobriety, learning to live without numbing, especially the urge to control outcomes. "Show up honestly," he said. "Every day." What remained was hidden and simple. He stopped performing to survive. Every lyric became an act of presence. He wasn't chasing validation anymore. He was practicing devotion, not to fame, not even to romance, but to life. The crowd rose before the last chord faded. He didn't bow. He stood in the light, guitar hanging loose, eyes scanning faces he could finally see. The stage had been his sanctuary, his battlefield, his booth for confession. Tonight it felt like closure. "Thank you," he whispered, voice breaking, "for listening to my life." They roared. He was elsewhere, barefoot again on a small-town floor, proof that sound can save you. It had. It still did. At 57, the edges of his legend softened into a steady glow. He had walked through addiction, adoration, vow, loss, and return, and he came out grateful. He didn't call it heartbreak. He called it a season. Love doesn't end when it changes. It evolves into memory and gratitude. They still spoke. Still laughed about old moments. Still stood together sometimes, not pretending. At peace. Forever. Rewritten. On the final tour, before a long pause, he closed each night with a song you won't find on any record. Just him and a guitar. No lights chasing him. He called it "Still Here." The lyric was fragile enough to bruise. I've broken in half just to learn how to bend. I've lost what I love just to love it again. If the world drops my name or forgets my song, I'll still be here, where I've belonged all along. Silence followed, reverent, relieved. People who had also lost, endured, forgiven themselves. He didn't say farewell. He handed the guitar to a tech and stepped into the dark. Outside, Nashville waited, soft and familiar, buzzing with the same note it carried the day he first arrived, young and terrified and true. Later, on a porch, lit by a single candle, a journalist asked what it all meant. The fame, the love, the letting go. He watched fireflies script small constellations over Tennessee and said, "It's all music, isn't it? The mistakes, the miracles, different verses of the same song. You just keep playing." He paused, smiled. "And if you're lucky, someone you once loved is still humming along." The camera caught a face mapped by laughter and weather, half here, half at peace. Wind moved through the trees. A melody hovered like something eternal. And as the screen dimmed, you could almost hear him, tender and endless. "I'm still here." That's the truth he kept. Not scandal, not sorrow, serenity. Not the end of love, but its transformation. The boy who dreamed of Nashville found something quieter than glory and stronger than forgiveness. He found stillness. And in that stillness, he remains. Not an idol, not a myth, just a man who turned wounds into music, noise into silence, and love into something that keeps on singing.